Hi, and welcome to Beatrice Weekly Health Tips. So today I'm going to talk to you about constipation. Constipation is a very, very common symptom. A lot of people suffer from that silently. They feel shamed about it. They don't want to talk about it. And it's something that is very prevalent. It's estimated that it's about 20% of the population that suffers from constipation, but in reality, my personal statistics show that it's way more than that. I would say that's probably 35 to 50% of the population. As we get older, constipation tends to increase, so this number goes from 50 to 75%. So what is it? Well, it's when the stools are too hard, too difficult to pass, and painful, and also the feeling that you're not emptying completely. So some people can go every day, but they don't empty their bowel properly. There is a tool that you can use that is called the Bristol scale chart, which helps you to determine what a stool should look like, because nobody teaches you about that, and it's not something that you can really ask to your doctor. So if you Google the Bristol scale, you'll see that it goes from 1 to 7, and the ideal stool should be a number 3 or a number 4. So a number 3 or number 4 looks like a sausage. It should be formed, it should be smooth, it should come out very easily, it should not be messy, and it should not stink. That's a normal stool. So I can tell you that it's very rare to find people that have stools that are actually like this. Anything not formed or anything that comes like pebbles is not right, and that's constipation. Or the other side, if it comes totally dismantled and then diarrhea, of course, that's not right either. So you can look at this Bristol chart, which will give you good indication. What are the causes of constipation? There are many, many, many. The very first one that everybody knows about is a problem with peristaltis. So the peristaltis is the way that your body moves the bowel. And the entire digestive system is lined with muscles, and these muscles have to do their job in order for the stools to move along. This peristaltis, these muscles, are under the control of the nervous system, which is called the sympathetic nervous system. It's an autonomous nervous system, so we can control it. This is something that is regulated all by itself. The problem is that there are a lot of people that have a dysregulation between their sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system. So when the sympathetic nervous system is overactive, you tend to have too many bowel movements. That's the case if, for example, you're in a stressful situation. It's very well known that people before a test, before an interview, will need to go to the bathroom several times. The peristaltis is augmented because of the activity of the sympathetic nervous system. On the other hand, the parasympathetic nervous system can be too active, so things are too slow and not moving correctly. And in that case, then you will tend to have constipation. Other reasons why the peristaltis doesn't move very well is a lack of liquid. If you don't moisture enough the stools, then they're too dry and they can't move along. Another reason could be fibers. It can be the lack of fibers, because we need fibers in order to stimulate the activity of the muscles of the colon. But you have to be very careful with fibers because they can be really a double-edged sword. If your colon and even small intestine is irritated, it tends to be that the fibers will irritate it more, because it's like scraping on an already irritated tissue. So if you have a lot of gas and bloating and pain, inflammation, you don't want necessarily to add more fibers. And then there's different types of fibers. There's soluble and insoluble fibers. And the soluble fibers are the ones that are going to bulk up with water. So that could be psyllium, chia seeds, acacia, gums, pectin that we find in apples. Those could be okay even on an irritated digestive system. Not always, though. So you have to be very careful if you suffer from constipation to not overload your system with fibers, because you may do more harm than good. Other reasons of peristaltis being disturbed is when someone has abused laxatives, of course, because then the muscles are forced to function with the laxative and then they become weak. It's like an elastic band, a rubber band that you have stretched out too much. They become loose. And medication can certainly affect constipation, especially painkillers like an opioid. Other very common cause is the lack of hydrochloric acid in your stomach. Digestive system is a long tube, and it starts at the very beginning, meaning your mouth and masticating, and it finishes at the anus. So the stomach is a part of your digestive system indeed, and if your stomach doesn't secrete enough hydrochloric acid, then you cannot break down the food properly, which means that the food is not going to move down properly. So always check for hydrochloric acid level. The way you know if you have enough or not is to take apple cider vinegar, 1 tablespoon with a little bit of water that you take before meals. If you feel good or if you feel nothing, you probably need it. If you were feeling burning, it's either that you have an ulcer or gastritis, or that maybe you have enough hydrochloric acid, which is very rare. You can also lack digestive enzymes, pancreatic enzymes. The pancreas contributes to the digestion as well, and we need enough secretion of lipase, protease, and amylase in order to not be constipated. And the lack of bile. The bile is fabricated by the liver, stored in the gallbladder, and released when we are eating fat. So you eat fat, the gallbladder squeezes out the bile, and the bile emulsifies the fat. And of course, people that have had their gallbladder removed may have, or not, more trouble with constipation. Sometimes it's the opposite, they have diarrhea. Another cause is SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, which is a very common condition where you have too many bacteria developing in the small intestine. Another cause is adrenal fatigue. The adrenal glands are secreting cortisol, DHEA, adrenaline, noradrenaline, and those are stimulant, and they do act upon the peristaltis. So when your adrenals are exhausted, which is the case of a lot of people, then there is not enough cortisol secretion for the bowels to move. So those are the causes. Now, what to do about that? There are many things that you can do, and you have to try one thing or another and see what works best for you. The first thing is to increase water. You could try to take fibers or add fibers to your diet, but maybe not. Like I said, you have to be careful. And certainly you need to move, you need to exercise. Exercise helps the peristaltis to move. If you have some type of intolerance to dairy, being lactose or casein or whatever, people that tend to be constipated do better with high-fat dairy, like butter, ghee, and cream. And they don't do as well with high-protein dairy, as in yogurt, kefir, or cheese. Of course, the first thing that I recommend for constipation or all kind of digestion issues is lacto-fermented vegetables. I never start with dairy, I always start with vegetables. So you make your own vegetables or you buy them, and you start with the juice, and you take a teaspoon per meal, then 2 teaspoons, then 3, and if everything goes well, you could have like 2 or 3 tablespoons per meal, and that will reacidify your stomach to the same token as apple cider vinegar, but also bring you friendly bacteria. And these friendly bacteria, little bit by little bit, are going to clean up your digestive system, your bad flora, which contributes to a great extent to constipation. Beet kvass is excellent for constipation. Beet that you cut in pieces and you put in a jar with salt and water. You can juice, and the greener the juice, the better. And then add what we do in GAPS, we call them GAPS milkshake, which is to add fat to your juice. So you make a juice and then you add cream or egg yolk or coconut oil or avocado, and then you blend it. It will make you like a smoothie that is very fatty, and that will help the peristaltis because it stimulates the bile production. If that doesn't work enough to produce bile production, you may have to do a liver gallbladder flush. I have talked about that in another podcast. As far as supplements, I often use MSM, which is sulfur, which certainly helps the liver to function better, so it can help the bowel movements. I also recommend alpha lipoic acid, which is also a liver help. Quinton minerals. Quinton is one of my favorite products because it's the only mineral supplement that I know of that is very well balanced as Mother Nature intended. So you can always take Quinton. A lot of people with constipation are dehydrated and demineralized. Taking Quinton will help that. Olive oil first thing in the morning can certainly help. Gelatinous meat helps. Dry meat, as in chicken breast, tends to give constipation. But a chicken leg, a chicken skin actually helps to fight constipation. If everything fails, you can certainly use glycerin suppositories. They're not for habit forming. They just draw water to the rectum, to the very end of your colon. So that's okay. But just with glycerin, nothing else. And then, of course, if you want to do more than the suppository, if you feel that you're really backed up, which is the case for a lot of people, then you can do enemas. And there again, I refer you to other podcasts that I have done on enemas. Finally, but most importantly, you need to work on the gut flora. If you have constipation, it means that your gut flora is imbalanced. And for that, you need the fermented food, you need the broth from GAPS. You can take probiotics, eventually some prebiotics, which are fibers. And most importantly, eradicate pathogenic bacteria, pathogenic fungus, viruses, parasites, in order to reestablish a proper flora. Last piece of information. As far as the nervous system is concerned, sometimes people suffer from constipation because their brain is not sending the right message through the nervous system. And you can do some exercise to stimulate that function, to stimulate the vagus nerve. In order to do that, there's 3 exercises. One is to gargle. Put a little bit of water in your mouth and gargle for 2, 3, or 5 minutes if you can. The longer you will, the more efficient it will be. The second thing is to sing out loud. It also stimulates the vagus nerve. And then the third thing is to stimulate your gag reflex. When the doctor pushes on your tongue with a little stick, he's just checking that you have a gag reflex. And this gag reflex is also another way to look at your nervous system, your sympathetic nervous system, or the vagus nerve. So those tricks have helped a few of my patients where we had worked on the gut flora, on the gallbladder, on the pancreas, on everything, but still they were constipated. Working on the vagus nerve or sympathetic nervous system has helped them to resolve that. So as you can see, there's many things that cause constipation. There are many things that can remedy constipation. In any case, you need to look at the root cause of the problem and not take simply a supplement that will fix the symptom. It's a symptom. That means that there is something deeper behind it, and there are reasons, and that's what you need to do. You need to consult with a practitioner, which will test you and help you figure out what are the root cause of your constipation, because it's different for everybody. I hope this was helpful. Thank you for listening. If you like this podcast, please don't hesitate to give me a thumb up, and I'll talk to you next week. Have a great day. Bye-bye.